Hello, good evening, welcome back, it's great to see you. I wanted to make a video today, which in some ways is a video I have already done. So I mentioned in a previous video that I have some expertise in pain management, and as a result of that I was invited 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, to do a TEDx talk in somewhere near where I live, and the topic of my talk was the complex nature of pain. I believe I entitled it Pain and the Brain, though looking back now I think I could have just as easily have called it Pain is Really Weird. And the reason I think I could have gone for that alternative title is because the experience of pain is something that we think we all understand, but actually it's much more complicated than it first seems. So I'm here today to basically, I'm going to read you the script of the TED talk that I did 2 years ago. And if you're interested in watching the original presentation, I'll link it either in the description below or in the cards somewhere up here. So I'm going to be reading from a screen that I have over here, but I will of course try and pay attention to the camera, because I know that helps. It'll be interesting to see how much I remember off by heart. I had to memorize this, and it was a struggle at the time. So here's how I started my TEDx talk. I'm here today to tell you about a huge myth. This myth is about pain, and it could be considered a leading cause of persistent low back pain. Here it is. Are you ready? The myth is pain equals damage. Now, on so many levels, this feels right to us, doesn't it? You get an injury, nerves carry pain signals to your brain, and you feel pain. But research has shown us that the experience of pain is so much more complex and nuanced than this, and actually it has very little to do with tissue damage at all. For example, we know that you can have an injury with no pain. If you took 100 people with no back pain and put them through an MRI machine, over 50% of them, up to 80% depending on their age, would have a disc bulge or osteoarthritis that is producing no symptoms and no pain. We also know that you can have pain without injury. If you want a more medical example, how about migraines? The pain from migraines is usually very severe, but there's no damage or injury with a migraine, and within a few hours the person has usually completely recovered. So what was all that pain about? We also know that you can have pain with no body part. Some of you may be familiar with phantom limb pain, where a person experiences pain in a limb that isn't there. Most commonly, this is in amputees, but there are cases of people born without limbs still experiencing sensations from a limb that never existed. Not only that, but it can be replicated in non-amputees as well. In certain research conditions, a person can be made to feel pain in someone else's body, or can be made to feel that deep tingly sensation that you feel in acupuncture when acupuncture is performed on a prosthetic limb, even if they've never had acupuncture before. So if you can have an injury with no pain, pain with no injury, or pain without even a body part, then our experience of pain cannot just be about tissue damage. We actually now know that many things contribute to the creation of an experience of pain. And it's all to do with complex interactions in the nervous system. But because neuroscience is really complicated, I like to think of it like a fire alarm. Because fire alarms don't actually respond to fire, do they? Most fire alarms respond to heat or smoke. In the same way, there are no pain signals, pain receptors, or pain pathways in the body. Receptors on the nerves, on the end of the nerves, are sensitive to pressure, stretch, touch, temperature, or certain chemicals. Now, these things might imply that there was some tissue damage, but not always. And actually, the brain takes a lot of other things into account too. It will take information from sight and sound to work out where you are and what you're doing. It will assess your mood and the levels of stress hormone in your blood. It will call on your memory bank to ask if you've been in this situation before. And it uses your personal beliefs about your body and your health. And using all this information, your brain asks one question. Do I need to protect myself? And if the brain feels that there is credible evidence of threat, it will create the experience of pain to protect you. Like that fire alarm sensing smoke or heat, it will sound the alarm. This in essence means that pain is not something that exists in your body. It is created by your brain and projected onto your body. Now, I just want to pause here and deal with a thought that I know a lot of you will be having. You might be thinking, now Julia, are you saying that for some people their pain is in their head? No, I'm saying for all of us, all of the time, our pain is in our heads. But don't misunderstand me, let me explain what I mean by that. What I mean by that is that pain is an output of the brain. What I'm not saying is that your pain is not real. If we return to that fire alarm analogy, that fire alarm could be sounding because of a house fire, the threat it was designed to respond to. Or it could be sounding because of burnt toast. But the sound it makes in both those situations is exactly the same. So regardless of what is driving your pain is real. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. For this reason, we must move away from the pain equals damage myth. Because if we believe that pain is always an accurate indicator of tissue damage or injury to the body, not only is that untrue, but it could potentially be very harmful. I mentioned at the beginning of this talk that this myth could be considered a leading cause of persistent low back pain. And one of the reasons for this is because the language that we use for low back pain is really rather scary. We talk about a slipped disc, a twisted pelvis, a weak core, or a spine that's out. And these can be scary sounding things, even though they're not life-threatening things at all. What often results from this kind of language is that people become frightened of their own bodies. Thinking back to what we just heard about pain, we know that stress hormones and your beliefs about your health and your body play a big role in the creation of the pain experience. And so we see how a vicious cycle could begin. People are frightened and they feel more pain. And because they feel more pain, they become more frightened. So an obvious thing that I would ask of you today, if you're watching this as a healthcare professional, especially if, like me, you're in the manual therapies, stop scaring your patients. We don't have good evidence that weak cores or twisted pelvises exist in the way that we describe them, much less that they cause pain. But we do have good evidence that the language we use can make patients feel fragile or broken, and this absolutely does contribute to their experience of pain. But if you're listening today and you're dealing with long-standing pain, then let me give you 3 truths to combat with this myth and help you with your pain. 1, 2, 3. Number 1, your body is fundamentally strong. A lot of you may be familiar with the statistics that come up in health and safety at work that say when you're sitting with bad posture or lifting with bad posture, lifting a heavy box, double the amount of pressure is put on your spine. Well, the original research for these statistics was conducted on cadavers. That is, people who donated their bodies to science for experimentation after their death. And so this study confirms something very obvious to me, that dead people should not sit in chairs or lift heavy boxes. The truth is that obviously cadaver research has some benefit and has some things that it can tell us, but your living tissues are so much more strong and resilient than those of a cadaver. And actually, more importantly from that piece of research, even the highest amounts of pressure measured in those cadavers were well within tolerance levels for a living spine. You are not a fragile structure. Number 2, don't fear movement. It's a common misconception that bending is bad for your back. And we hear all the time that we have to hold our spine really straight and brace our core before any movement in our back. But honestly, stiffening up your back like that is quite an unnatural thing to do. On the other hand, there is strong evidence of the many benefits of staying active to reduce pain. In fact, keeping mobile, for many people this would involve staying in work, results in less pain and faster recovery. So don't fear movement. Motion is lotion, as they say. Number 3, your body can heal. Think back to the last time you had a cat scratch or a paper cut. How long did that take to get better? Would you be surprised if after a year it was still bleeding? We're so used to our skin healing and repairing itself, but we often don't have the same faith in the bits that we can't see, like our joints. But the same immune cells that heal your skin are working all the time to repair your insides too. So you can have some faith. You are always repairing and getting better. Now, I think this topic is so incredibly important because a misunderstanding of pain and a fear of our bodies can be a huge burden for the individual. Patients tell me all the time that they have stopped doing things that are important to them because they don't trust that their bodies will cope. But the impact is not just felt at the individual level. Low back pain and neck pain are both leading causes of time off work in Britain. And the UK, like most other European countries, spends between 2 to 3% of GDP on its treatment. In fact, the treatment of persistent pain costs more than diabetes and cancer combined. Imagine how this would change if we threw out the pain equals damage myth. If instead of spiraling into inactivity and fear, we remembered that we are strong and capable of healing. How liberating would it be if we remembered that movement will build our bodies and not break them? And how empowering would it be if we recognized the ability